What's up? I'm Caden DeBrain. If you don't know me, I am a self-taught fashion designer. I'm 19. I really love clothes and I'm trying to bring some meaning back to our world. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how I like to create a pattern for a pair of jeans. There's lots of different ways to do this, but this is a very good way to start. So for this video, I'm going to be taking a pair of jeans that already fit nice, and then I'm going to be taking the measurements from them and then creating a pattern from there that we can adjust and make whatever we want. In future videos, I'm going to go fully in depth on how to take your measurements, how to create a pattern from there. But I thought I'd start just by getting this out so that you guys can start making your own patterns from scratch. So this jacket and these jeans were completely cut and sewn and patterned by me. I really love this fit. It's kind of been my uniform. Jacket is very fast, very cool. Jeans, been wearing them every day. So yeah, you can create some pretty awesome stuff with this. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need for this is a pair of jeans to reference. So you're going to want to find a pair of jeans that fits your waist nice. I'll try these on and kind of show you what I mean. Here's the pair I'm going to be referencing. You can see they fit nicely on my crotch and my waist, and it's just a nice, simple, well-fitting pair of jeans on me. Once we have the pair of jeans that we're going to want to reference, there's two ways that we can move forward here. One of them being completely deconstructing the pants. What you're going to need for that is a seam ripper, and what you're going to want to do is basically just undo every seam, and that'll leave you with all of the panels, and then you can trace that pattern from there. For this video, I'm not going to be doing that version because I think this way is going to be better practice for when I do the full version of this series. And this version is applicable to so many things, and you don't even have to take apart the jeans, you just have to take the measurements. Let's talk about supplies. You're going to need patterning paper. I'm going to be using this construction paper I got from Home Depot for $12. I think a lot of people would suggest that you go get gridded paper. I need to find a good place to buy that. It should work about the same for these purposes. Then we're going to want a ruler and a tape measure, and you might also want a nice long yardstick ruler. Last but not least, we're going to need some pencils. I like using mechanical pencils, but normal pencils are great too. That's just personal preference. It's nice to have a big workspace. I'm going to be using my table, or you can go on the ground, use your kitchen counter. I don't know. It's nice to have some space to work on this. And if your jeans are wrinkly, I highly suggest you iron them flat so that each of the panels is flat. This may be knowledge that a lot of people have, but here's kind of an overall breakdown of a pair of jeans and what the panels are. Okay, so we're going to be patterning a front panel, and that's going to be slightly smaller than the back panel. So we need the front panel. And then we're going to get the back panel. We're going to need to pattern the waistband, the pocket facing, the coin pocket, as well as belt loops, zipper facing, and zipper shield. Then on the back, we're going to want to pattern a back pocket. And what this right here is, this is called the yoke. And traditionally, pants would have a dart going right along here. And what that does is kind of tightens up the pants around your butt cheek because you have some curve there that needs to come up. And the reason they needed that is because denim was intended as workwear originally. Using this flat felled seam, which is a rolled seam, which is a lot stronger than just a single dart, made it so that they were able to wear the pants for longer without them falling apart when they were working in mines or farming or whatever they were doing. So we're going to need to pattern a yoke as well. Also, tailor's chalk is going to be really helpful. I just dropped it. You can get the wax stuff, which is okay, but I prefer the more chalk-based. Kind of my goal with this video is to give you guys the groundwork so that you can go create something beautiful with this, so that you can make your own jeans, so you can go sell jeans. I am creating my own competition, but I know how helpful this video would have been to me a year or two ago, and so I want to be the guy to help everyone out and give you this resource. All right, so the first thing we're going to be doing is finding the center line of this front panel. So the way we're going to do that is by measuring the bottom hem. We got 7 inches, and then you divide that by 2. So 3.5. Give ourselves a little mark there. And then we're going to be doing the same thing with the top. I got 8 3/4. Half of that is 4 3/8. Okay, then we're going to take our longer ruler and connect those 2 points. Voila, this is going to be our center line, and this is going to help us transfer the pattern really nicely. Perpendicular to this, we are going to mark our crotch. I'm just going to draw a line there to make it easier. You want to go straight from this very tip all the way to the side. Make sure that you're making your line square. Then halfway in between the crotch and the hem, we're going to do our knee. 31 15 and a half. So mine's right at 15 and a half. Then we're going to square that off. And then I like to do my thigh measurement about 2 inches below my crotch. So just draw a line 2 inches below that. And then the last one I'm going to mark here is the hip width. It's about 3 inches down from the waistband. Okay, so now that we have all these lines drawn, these are all the measurements that we're going to need to get. So we're going to need to get these measurements, but we're also going to need to get the distance between this measurement and this measurement and this measurement. I'm going to grab my patterning paper. Okay, now we're going to be drawing our center line here. Just need to make sure we got plenty of room. So this is about 7 inches at the furthest distance, and I want to have lots of extra room. So I'm going to draw my line 9 inches into the paper, just because it's really annoying to run out of space and run out of paper. I'm going to draw a nice long line on my sheet of paper. This is going to be our center line, and everything's going to be based off of this line. Measure the distance of our pants on the center line. Looks like these are 39 inches, so I'm just going to go make a mark. 39. All right, now to get all of these measurements, the distance between each one, we're going to take the distance between this to this and mark that on our paper. So waistband to the hip, then we're going to get hip to crotch, which is 5 inches. And from crotch to thigh is going to be 2 inches. And our knee is going to be halfway between the crotch and the hem, so that's going to be 15 and a half. Okay, now we are going to square all of these off. The way that I'm squaring it off is I'm lining up the line here and then drawing the line on this side, so it kind of creates a square, or you could use a square. This is just kind of how I do it. Just make sure that it's nice and straight. I'm going to extend these a little bit further than needed, but that's okay. Square it off. The way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be getting this full measurement and then seeing where it lands on the center line. So the full measurement is 10 inches here, but the center line is 4 3/4. So how we'll do that is we'll put the center line at 4 3/4, mark it there, and then mark it at the 10. And that'll give us our perfect measurement. I guess also we need to do the top, and that is 9 inches. So 4 1/2, 9. Boom, first measurement. Then we're going to do that same thing all the way along. Then that 11 1/2 and 4 3/4. So 4 3/4, 11 1/2, 0. And I'm getting these measurements not from the whole length of the pant, but from seam to seam. That's very important. These measurements are vital, so make sure you're getting these as close as possible and as accurate as possible. And then our hem was 7 inches, so 3 1/2 on each side. Okay, now that we have all of these points, we're going to start connecting them. We're going to start with straight lines, and then we can go in with a curve and fix them up. But we're just going to go in and connect each point to the one next to it like that. And if you make any mistakes, just go ahead and fix the line and be sure to erase the old line right away. Otherwise, you're going to get confused, and that's no fun because then you don't understand. You want to try to keep this as clean as possible. It can get messy when you're first learning. Mine kind of get messy sometimes, but then I'm going to go around and just kind of erase these extra lines on the outside here and curve this out. And we don't want to have any sharp points like this, so we're also going to take our curve and clean those up like this. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then to shape this front part right, this side is going to be a 1/2 inch higher. And so we're going to draw a line at a 1/2 inch, and then that's going to angle down. I want to curve that. And then just anywhere that there's a little bit of a sharp point, sharp points are not going to look good. And so we're going to take our curve and curve that out. If you don't have a curve, you can also just kind of like do a little bit of this action and just like try to mellow the curve. But using a curve helps. Give this a little bit more of a curve. And now we successfully have our measurements on the front panel. Okay, I forgot to eat lunch, so I got a headache, so we're taking a little break. What's cool about this is once you have your base pattern, you can expand it from anywhere. So once you get this, and then once we do the back panel, we can adjust the shape, we can change the leg opening, we can make them wide leg jeans. Yes, you can make baggy jeans. You can make flares, you can do bell bottoms. It's just about adjusting the inseam a little bit or the leg opening size. And so we can just make small adjustments from there, and you can make pretty much any pair of jeans. The back can be a little bit trickier because the back panel is a lot bigger, but same thing. Okay, this bottom hem is 9 inches. Call it 4 in the middle. Okay, for the back, we're going to be going off of the yoke. I'm going to do the yoke separately. So this flat felt seam, we're going to find the center of it. 10 inches, half of 10 is 5. Draw a nice little mark there. And then once again, get these nice and flat. Then we're going to go in and connect these lines. I'm going to get the crotch halfway in between. That's 30 divided by 2, 15. 2 inches for the thigh. Let's go 3 inches. And so we'll do the whole process again. It helps to have your side seams facing each other. So like now we're gonna have this side seam facing this way, and the curve will go like that. And then you can kind of just see how they line up and stuff. Okay, then we're gonna draw our center line. We could mark the hem and the top. Get the full distance, which is 39 inches. This right here, 39 inches. 3 inches down, 6 inches down, 2. And then once again, my knee measurement is going to be halfway in between. Front and back are going to have different inseam lengths and different crotch depths. That's just because you have a butt and that's how your body's shaped. Bottom was 9 inches, so 4.5 on each side. Knee is 9.5 inches, 5 inches on this side. It sometimes is easier just to get one side of each measurement at a time. So for the thigh here, I could go center line out is 5 inches. So center line out 5 inches. And then I see, because the back is bigger than when it's folded in half, 7 3/4. Do the same thing on the crotch. Okay, now we're going to play connect the dots. I'm going to be making a little bit of a change. This tapers in more than I want, so I'm going to make that 5 instead of 4.5, and then just extend this down because I don't need these to be extra skinny at the bottom. And I want a regular fit. Very important that you erase your lines right away. That's a mistake that I've made that is a pain in the butt. Okay, and then I'm going to make this part of the crotch a 1/2 inch taller than the other side, so just extend that up and boom, erase it. Basically just, with stuff like that, you kind of measure here, see that this one is a little bit smaller than this side. You're really just trying to take this pattern, take all the measurements and plop it on here. Okay, for the yoke, I'm just going to take the measurements here to get the general measurements. So from the waistband to the center of this seam is 2.5, and then from there to there is 1 inch. I like to add an extra 1/2 inch to my yoke just to give me some extra seam allowance, and I kind of like a bigger yoke. You can do that however you want. So this is what that will look like. I put those measurements on there. That's my yoke. Is either take some tracing paper and trace over this, or put this underneath here like that. Use tracing paper or plastic. The way that I like to do it is to take this pattern tracing tool like this little wheel spiky tool, and then you just trace along this line, and that'll poke holes all along that. Then we pull it out, see that there's holes poked in there, and so we'll trace that out. Then we're going to be making a 1/2 inch dart, and so go 1/2 inch that way. I'm going to cut out this yoke. To add that dart in, we're just going to fold this and grab a piece of tape. So now you can see that that dart is kind of built in there, and we're going to trace this back onto our paper and clean it up and give it a little bit better of a curve. And then we're going to take our curve tool and just clean up our curve. On the top and the bottom. So now we have our basic panels and all of that set up. So that's a great place to be. Now we need to pattern a lot of the other pieces, and you can make any adjustments you want, and then we're going to add seam allowance. So for this pair, I'm going to make these a little bit more of a boot cut. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be extending my leg opening out by 1 inch on each side, connect it to the knee. So if at this point you would like to make this a baggy pair of jeans or flares or a bell bottom, this is where you'd go ahead and make those changes. I can just do a quick walkthrough of how you would go about doing that. You're gonna have to kind of just play around with it and adapt it to your body, and so it's gonna take a few samples. The way that you're supposed to do this is you're supposed to make your full pattern and then test it with a test fabric. And then once that feels right, you can keep doing that several times. You make adjustments, and then you finally use your final denim or your final material. So if you want these to be a more of a wide leg fit, you could take this line, and at this point, instead of it curving in, you could have it come straight down here, and that would give you that wider leg fit. You could also flare it out on this side. If you wanted a bell bottom, it would flare like this out at the bottom here. Same thing with the flare. There's a lot of different things. This is a good time to use your creativity, try a bunch of different stuff, do a flare, do a baggy jean. If you wanted to do a baggy jean, then you'd want to like taper it down at the bottom here and then have it be wide and then come back. Or if you wanted wide, then you just go straight down. So that's something you're going to have to play with in practice. Once you have the shape that you want to go with, we're going to add our seam allowances. Okay, for seam allowances, we're going to do a 1/2 inch all the way around. But on the inseam here, it's going to be a 3/4 inch. And that's because it's a flat felled seam and you need a little bit more seam allowance for the flat felled seams. Go around and kind of trace. For our hem, we're going to do 1/2 inch hem. And then a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure to extend the lines down straight. Then we're going to do the same thing on the back panel. On the back, there's a flat felled seam connecting these two panels. So that's also going to be a 3/4 inch seam. On the yoke, that's also going to be a 3/4 inch seam. This whole center back here is a flat felled seam, so we're also going to do a 3/4 inch on that. All normal seams are a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but flat felled seams are going to be a 3/4 inch. So inseam, center back, and yoke are all going to be 3/4 inch. Okay, so here's how we're going to do pockets. It's pretty much the same thing. We're going to take the measurements of the top, check the measurements, get the measurement for the side, put it on. So that was 5 and 3 inches. And then I'm just checking to see how like steep the curve is, marking that. Same thing on the bottom. And then I'm going to go in with a curve and curve that out. It's pretty much just copying and tracing what we did on that main pair. Then we're going to go in and do a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to move on to the pocket facing. Basically the same thing here. We're going to take our ruler, check the depth, like how much deeper than our pocket that goes. Looks like mine's about 2.5 inches. And so I'm going to take note of that, mark it on the paper, and then see how long it is the other way. Looks like it's about 1 inch longer. Then I'm just going to check the curve and the steepness, how deep it goes down. We're really just trying to take the measurements, trace it, pretty straightforward stuff. Next up, we're going to pattern our pocket bags. It's the same thing. Take the measurement from the top, mark how much further it goes, measure how deep it is, and mark that on the paper, draw a line. Then we're going to get the measurement of the side there, mark that. Okay, and then we're going to match the curve on the jeans. Just do the same thing as your jeans. My apologies about the video. Sometimes it's a little bit fuzzy. Here's how that's going to look once you got it all drawn on there. Now we need to make a separate pattern piece. So we're going to take our tracing tool, or you can just trace it. We're going to stick our piece of paper underneath there, and we're going to trace on top of it. This will allow us to get our pocket pattern pieces onto another panel. Here I am tracing that with this tracing tool. Once again, you can just use tracing paper or some sort of translucent thing and trace over this, but I don't have that at the moment, so I'm using the tracing tool. Once that is traced, we're going to go over it with our ruler and our pencil. This will leave us with a replica of what's on our pattern, and be sure to add the pocket opening in there as well. Then we're going to fold this in half and cut it on the fold so we don't have to pattern this twice and so that it's identical. Then we're going to unfold it and cut out our pocket opening on that one side. Make sure everything matches up and that you traced it right. Now we have ourselves a really nice pocket bag. What we're going to do here is just notate it. Once you're making a lot of patterns and you have different pockets, it gets confusing if you don't know what you're working on. So I just kind of named it, said what it was and the version I was on. So this is the version 1 of my boot cuts. Repeat that step with the pocket facing, write what it is, and toss it in the pile. Now we're going to move on to the zipper facing and zipper shield. At this point, you should get the picture, but we're going to take the measurements from it and copy it down onto the paper. All right, so generally speaking, these are about 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to make my 1.5 inch rectangle. And I like to make these boxy now. I used to make them kind of more sharp. So 2 of those rectangles, because it's folded in half, add 1 inch seam allowance and title it. Then we're going to move on to the zipper facing. Take the measurements. I think it's also about 1.5 inches. It's a little bit shorter. Make sure to add your seam allowance. Give it that nice curve. Be sure to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance on that outside on this one. So it should be about 2 inches. That's so you can sew it on. And I'm making this one more rigid, so I added a little bit of extra seam allowance. If you want a zigzag stitch, just do 1/4 inch, but I'm going to fold it. All right, so now we are moving on to back pockets. Back pockets is kind of straightforward. I mean, you can do it however you want. You can shape them however you want. For this, I'm going to mess around with the pocket shape. You can just copy your pair. You can make modifications for it. I guess just generally follow the same location and the sizing. With pockets, you're going to want to add a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch seam allowance, whatever you prefer. I'm going to 1/2 inch. And then at the top, you're going to want to make sure you add a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then also another 1/2 inch for the hem. Pockets are pretty easy and straightforward, but you can have a lot of fun with them. Now you should have a solid pocket. Okay, for the waistband, we are going to take our tape measure and we're going to walk all the way around the distance of the pants, making sure to get the total distance because the waistband is actually longer than your waist, so do not make that mistake. And that's because of the buttons. I'll call it 37.5. Pretty standard operating waistband height is 1.5 inches, so 1.5 inches. So for our waistband, it's going to be 3 inches like this. It's going to be 37.5. We're going to find the center point and then we're going to extend it from there. We're going to extend our line out to the distance of our waistband. Once we have our center line, we're going to mark the center line and fold our piece of paper on that center line. What I'm doing here is called contouring the waistband. I'm going to be drawing a line 1 inch higher on one end of the waistband, and this is going to make the waistband curved. And so I'm curving that line with my little curve ruler and then cleaning it up, making sure it's straight. This is what I'm going to base the rest of my waistband off of. Okay, now our waistband is curved, so we're going to, on either side of this, go up 1.5 inches. Same thing on the side. Boot cuts, version 1. This is a 34 waist. And then we can just cut this out on the fold, and that'll give us both sides equal. Just trim this up. With that, we have ourselves a waistband. I like to do my belt loops a little bit differently than traditionally. Brief intermission. Just like to say, everyone that's watching this, I love you so much. If you've watched the video so far, you should go drop a comment. I don't care what it is, but you should do it. Do it for good luck. Do it for your mom. Drop a comment of what the next video I should make is. Anyways, thanks guys. For belt loops, I like to do them a little bit differently than normal. Your average belt loop is kind of has like a zigzag stitch there, but I kind of like to do a thicker belt loop. So I'm going to show you how I go about doing that. Normally they're about 1 inch wide, so I have that inch. And then belt loops are generally 2.5 inches. I like to have my belt loops so that they tuck into my waistband. That makes them higher quality and makes them better. So I'm going to go, okay, I like the belt loops to be 2 inches, and then for the fold, I'm going to do 1/2 inch, and to tuck it into the waistband, an additional inch. So that's 4 inches per waistband, and we need 4 of those for the whole pair. So 4 times 4, that's 16 inches. I'm going to extend this line out. Just make a mark every 4 inches. Cool. First thing on the outside, I like to do 3/8 and 1/2 inch on both sides. And that's so that I can just like roll it over. So it's kind of like a rolled belt loop. You could also not add the seam allowance and just serge the edges, fold it over, and sew it, and then it'll be good as well. That's another way that I like to do it. Extend these out. For coin pockets, you can kind of do that however you want. You can extend it all the way in. There's a lot of different ways to do the coin pocket, but you kind of can just draw it on here. I'll show you how I'll do this one. Just account for my seam allowance just so I remember where it all is. Okay, so I want to leave a little bit of space over here like this. So I just marked that line there. And then I think this one I'm going to extend all the way into the side seam because that's something I want to try. And honestly, I'm going to extend it all the way to the bottom for this coin pocket. I'm just going to extend it right to the bottom. And I'm going to drop it 1 inch right here. This is going to be my coin pocket. Trace these lines out. So I have this one on there, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Mark this seam allowance. Notate this bad boy. Just gonna notate my main pattern pieces here. Okay, now our pattern should be completely drawn out. Everything should be notated with what it is, and then we are going to cut it out. When you're cutting, be sure to be precise. And that's how you pattern a pair of jeans. This is what it should all look like once you're done. You should have all your pieces. You should be able to hang them or store them nicely. If you would like to know how to sew these jeans, I have a video on how to construct jeans from scratch. So I highly suggest you go watch that for your next steps. After this video, I do plan on doing a full series with taking your measurements and doing this whole process with your own measurements instead of based on another pair of jeans. Hopefully you learned something. If you like this video, it would help a lot if you liked, comment, and subscribe. I'd love the comment sections to be full of people talking about what they want to work on or just what's going on with their lives. Let me know if you guys have any questions. If there's anything I didn't make clear in the video, please drop a comment and let me know. My apologies about any poor audio or poor video. I was filming this on my phone. Lots of new videos, lots of new clothes on the way. If you'd like to go check out my other works, you can follow me on Instagram, eforanything, and my website is eforanything.com. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I love you. Peace out.